Hi guys, it is Friday and it's 2:30, so that means it is Family Friday time. And if you don't know me, my name is Mari Soliday and we are here at the Museum of Northern Arizona, and we have an adventure for you. We are going to learn all about snow, and in order to do that, we are going to travel to a few different places to talk to you all about snow. So let's do some vocabulary words that I want you to be listening for throughout our program today. They're important for you to understand about snow. And I know we've talked about this a lot in our programming, is a lot of times us as humans, we kind of throw around words that you think that you just know what it is, such as snow. Well, some of you, especially if you're coming here in Flagstaff, you have lived in snow, you have seen snow, you've played in snow. If you're not from Flagstaff and you're coming to us from a place that doesn't get snow, maybe you have seen it in movies, maybe you read about snow, but do you really actually know what is snow made out of? Why does it snow? Those are some of the questions we're going to be answering today, and let's talk about some words so we can understand them. Okay? You wouldn't be able to have a snow program if we didn't have the vocabulary word today, snow. So, snow is small white crystals of ice formed directly from the water vapors in the air. Okay? And if there are some words in there like crystals and vapors and air, or like atmosphere, we're going to talk about those today too, in case you don't know what those words mean. Atmosphere, okay? That is the gases that surrounds a star or a planet. Well, our Earth is a planet, and the air, and above the air and all around our planet is the atmosphere. And that's where snow is made. So it's good to know atmosphere. You cannot talk about snow or have a snow program without the word snowflakes. Now, snowflakes are a bunch of crystals, okay? I've used crystals twice. So what's a crystal? A crystal is kind of like building blocks, okay, that are frozen, and they all fit together and in a repeating pattern. And they can form the thing that falls from the sky. That's a snowflake made of the snow. Now, you can't have a snowflake without this next word, okay? And it's called a hexagon. A hexagon is a shape with 6 sides. And you can see this little shape here, or like a stop sign, but look, here's what it looks like in the snow, and that is the beginning part of the snowflake. Isn't that cool? Before we go on and do some experiments with snow, I want you to notice something right here in this environment, this place that we're at. You notice I'm standing in snow, and we are on the south side of our building here, but remember from our winter solstice program how the sun is changing differently because of our seasons? Well, the sun is so far south right now that the building is blocking any sunlight here to our courtyard. So you can almost see like an invisible line that says, okay, snow is over here, no snow over there on the patio. Now that's not because it snowed on this side of the courtyard and not the other. It's because that sun is being blocked right now, and this is the coldest part of the courtyard. It doesn't have sun on it, so the snow is staying here. Where on the other side, and where we're going to do our experiments today, you can see that the sun is over there and it's melted all the snow. So that's the difference. The other thing that I want to point out about the snow here on our courtyard, we haven't had snow here in Flagstaff for quite some weeks. So this snow is old, And you're going to be able to see later on in our program how man-made snow is made. This snow, even though this is naturally made snow, right now it is a lot like the man-made snow that you're going to get to see in our program today. And the reason why that is because of the age of this snow. It has had time to kind of melt with the higher temperatures throughout the day, even though the sun's not getting here. It has had time to melt, and then at night, we've had temperatures here down to 12 degrees, even maybe 9 degrees in some of the places. So when it gets down to that kind of temperature, the crystals, there's that word again, in the old snow will freeze again. So it's kind of like moving and shaping, and it definitely has a different structure when the snow is old. Come along with me. We're going to walk across the courtyard and we're going to do some experiments and talk some more about snow. I'm going to need to get some of our old snow here. We're going to get some old snow and we're going to put it in our little hot pod over here, and we're going to do an experiment with this snow. We're going to drop our snow into our pan here, and we're going to watch. What we're watching for is a gas, okay? Do you see the steam? Those are vapors. That is a gas, okay? That is very important to making snow, okay? Man-made or naturally made. You have to, now we really, I'm getting a steam facial. Okay, so we got this, we have three matters here. The liquid that's in the pan, the gases, the vapors that are coming up, and we had a solid. The snow is something solid. That's important. So what does our experiment that we just did, what does that teach us? That is actually what's happening up in the clouds. Remember this summer when we talked about clouds and rain? How that happens? Snow is real similar. So obviously it's going to happen in the clouds up in the atmosphere there. And vapor, like you saw coming off out of our pan, the vapor, the moisture is up there. And due to freezing temperatures, because we're in winter, right? The freezing temperatures freezes those vapors. And what happens is those vapors will freeze and turn into little crystals. And you'll form a snowflake that falls down to the earth. Now, all snowflakes are made with that six-sided hexagon shape. But as these crystals are globbing onto that shape, they will form different shapes from one snowflake to another. So snowflakes are different also. The other thing that I want to mention, the mighty, majestic mountain there. Now, if you're not from Flagstaff, that is the San Francisco Peaks. Not only are the San Francisco Peaks majestic and beautiful and a huge volcano, the peaks have a special meaning to other people. The people that live here on the Colorado Plateau are our native culture. Holds a great respect, and it's very sacred. The San Francisco Peaks are to all of the people that live here on the Colorado Plateau. I know that some of my friends have told me that it is a belief that the clouds come there to the peaks, the San Francisco Peaks. They accumulate there. Clouds are very symbolic in the native people culture. And the clouds, what do they bring? They bring rain and snow, which are very important to life. Right now, it's really, really sad, but you will notice how there's not snow on there right now, because it's been a while since Flagstaff has gotten some snow. And we're going to talk to a weatherman today and ask him some questions about why don't we have any snow? Why isn't there some snow right now on the San Francisco Peaks? Yes. So, Lee, how long have you been a weather person?
I started with weather in the Navy. As a young man, I was on an aircraft carrier and I was a weather observer because, of course, the ship needs to know the weather and the airplanes on the ship need to know the weather and the captain needs to know the weather. And then coming out of the Navy, I went on to university because I enjoyed it and got my degree in meteorology. Out of college, I went to work for the airlines and I told pilots the weather because, of course, they need to know the weather. Flying all over the world. So I was doing that for several years and then found my interest in television and came to Flagstaff. So I've been forecasting in Flagstaff for 20 years and currently I am found on the radio at KNAU.
Wonderful. What a great journey. So Lee, we're here to talk about snow. So what's the first thing we need to talk about if we're having a conversation about snow?
Well, you can't start talking about snow without talking about clouds, because any type of precipitation, rain or snow or hail or anything starts with clouds, right? And how do we get clouds? Well, you have to lift up the air. So this air that we breathe, we're in the atmosphere, we all take a deep breath. This is made up of a bunch of invisible gases, usually. But these gases can also condense into water vapor. And so when we lift these gases that we all live in and breathe and give us life, we have to lift them. And when they lift, they get colder and colder. And when they get cold, the water vapor, which is a gas, well, it can turn to a liquid, a water droplet, or it can turn to a solid, an ice crystal. And ice crystals are what this lesson is about, and snow. So if it's cold enough, when we lift that air, it turns to ice. But you know what's interesting is even when it's rain here in the summer or anywhere in the summer, it starts off as snow in the cloud. But when it comes out of that cloud, it melts and becomes rain. But if it's cold enough, it stays snow. So how do we lift
know
it?
that? That's awesome.
Yes, right. So how do we lift air? There's several ways to get a cloud and lift air. And typically with wintertime storms and snow, we lift air via cold fronts. And what is a cold front? A bunch of cold air rushing down, usually from the north, from the cold polar regions, and coming in. And that's like a cold wedge of air. And when it hits some other moist air, it forces that air up and over it, like we see here on the graphic. The warm air moving up over the top of the cold front, and that's where we usually see the clouds and the rain or snow form in association with a cold front. Of course, we haven't had many cold fronts this year, and we'll get into that in a little bit. There's another way that we're very familiar here in northern Arizona with lifting air, and it's up over mountains. It's called orographic lifting. You really don't need to know that fancy word, but if you bring a bunch of air in and it hits a mountain, let's say this is the San Francisco Peaks, it rises up over it. It's got to lift up over that, and it gets colder as it lifts up. It turns the water vapor into either liquid droplets or ice crystals, and then that forms precipitation. Much more on the side where the wind comes in and it's lifted than on the other side of it. Let's say over on the other side of the San Francisco Peaks where the air starts sinking and drying and warming. That's why it's much drier and warmer as you get out towards the reservation and areas east of the San Francisco Peaks, and why right here in Flagstaff, we're kind of in a bit of an oasis here as far as Arizona goes, because we lift air not only on the San Francisco Peaks, but there's another very the most significant feature in Arizona geography and weather is the Mogollon Rim. And let's see if we zoom in here and you guys can see, this is the San Francisco Peaks where my cursor is. And this whole feature from Flagstaff down right along the Mogollon Rim, which heads down around Heber, Overgard, and then towards Show Low and the White Mountains. This is where we go from the deserts of southern Arizona to the high country of northern Arizona. And that air comes in like this, and then it has to jump up 3,000 feet in just a matter of miles. And that cools it very rapidly. That squeezes out the moisture. Notice how there's all the snow here. This map happens to show the snow along the Mogollon Rim feature. Notice right on the other side into
Oh.
the little Colorado River Valley, and you're much, much drier and much, much warmer. So
Wow.
these are two mechanisms of lifting air. And the last one that we don't really need to talk about because we're in snow, but it's much more of a summer feature, is heating the ground, right? The sun heats the ground, the warm air bubbles have to rise, and that's kind of what we see when we get into our monsoon season. Warming air is another way to lift the air. So let's get back to the snow thing, right? So cold fronts, making clouds in an air mass that's cold enough and giving us clouds. And inside the cloud, what happens? We have to have some snowflake formation, right? Not every cloud makes snowflakes. So you have to have enough moisture in that cloud to make snowflakes. Now, here's a little video that's about snowflake formation. Well, that was kind of a brief explanation there of how snow forms in the cloud. And many of us are familiar with how pretty snow is.
Yes.
And how magical. And it comes in many forms and shapes. The most common are called stellar dendrites. They're 6-pointed stars. And I think all of us across Arizona have been in a snowstorm and you see it fall on your dark colored jacket and they're beautiful little crystals on there, right? Mm-hmm. And they're even more amazing if you put them under a microscope. I mean, these are actual microscopic images of these beautiful snowflakes. You can also get, like they talked about in the video, the huge snowflakes, and that's kind of more in a warmer situation when the snowflake starts to fall and it starts to melt on the edges, just the edges. And then that little liquid on the outside picks up another snowflake and picks up another snowflake. And then it just becomes a huge snowflake. And so that's more of a wet type snow situation. And then we can also get the very light, dry, powdery type of snow that they talked about in the video. We haven't seen much snow this year.
No, we have not.
Well, the pattern hasn't been favorable and we haven't seen many storms, but I'm sure many of you have heard of El Nino and La Nina. And that's when we talk about the temperatures of the ocean. And the ocean and the atmosphere are very connected. And El Nino and La Nina are referring to either colder than normal water in the equatorial Pacific along the equator or warmer. We're in a La Nina this year. You see, here's the United States up here. Here's the cold La Nina water. Here is a graphic explaining a more typical storm pattern in a La Nina versus El Nino. Here's La Nina right here. It's the cold water down here, but this is the storm track. It wants to stay up by Alaska and come down through Canada and stay way away from here where it says drier by Arizona. Mm-hmm. When you have the warmer water in an El Nino winter, this storm track wants to come down. It feeds off it. That warmer water is giving more steam to the atmosphere, and the storm track wants to feed off that. So this year, we are in a La Nina, a fairly moderate strength one. Here is a graphic of La Nina all the way up to right now. Here's the United States. Here's this blue cold water that I just showed you. And this is the difference from average. All this blues is like we're 2 degrees cooler than a normal year, which feeds into this very unfavorable storm pattern for Arizona. It doesn't mean we won't see some storms. It means we'll see many less. And that's exactly what's happened this year. Here's another closer up picture of this colder water along the equator. Of course, we're way north of it here in Arizona in the United States, but the storm track doesn't want to come around this cold water. And that is what we're seeing. This is a huge picture of the whole globe, but this is currently on this Wednesday, the 13th of January. Here we are in Arizona and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
This storm is going to just go up over the top. We're like in a quintessential La Nina storm track.
You can really see why we're not getting the moisture.
This is the satellite that looks over the Pacific Ocean. And so you see, this is a huge storm here. And the storm track right now is very La Nina. This all goes up in the Pacific Northwest. Nothing comes down into Arizona. An opposite example, this isn't current, but here is Arizona. And here is the subtropical jet stream, which is feeding off of nice, juicy, warm ocean water down here, coming into Arizona, giving us a bunch of moisture. But at the currently, we're in a completely opposite situation. You see nothing coming from down here into Arizona. Everything is like this storm. This meteorologists do a lot of things, but how do we tell the weather day to day? And we don't just go look at that satellite picture or say, it's La Nina, I guess it'll never snow all year. We look at the atmospheric models. And this is a little more complicated, but there's these huge supercomputers, right, that are the size of schoolrooms and the size of the museum that are constantly crunching billions of lines of math and physics. And everybody all over the world is taking the temperature every hour in China, in Africa, in Europe, and every single city, and on boats all across the ocean. And that's all going into the computer. And then the computer's doing all these lines of physics and math to say, how is the atmosphere going to behave? How are all these invisible gases going to work? Where's warm air going to go? Where's cold air going to go? And it's pretty fascinating. So we're looking at an atmospheric model right now. And I'm going to put it into motion. And what we're looking at here in Arizona is very quiet weather. And you'll see these hot colors are the storms. And we put it into motion, and you'll see the way the atmosphere has been behaving in a very La Nina way, up over the top, up in. And we're going to go into the forecast future. We're starting right now on this Wednesday, and we just loop it. And everything, this storm we saw out in the Pacific, it's going to go up into the Northwest. Then it's going to come down. Then the next one up in the Northwest and come down. It's just like this thing out here is blocking everything. This huge area of low pressure. But if I pause it right back here, and let's go into pause mode.
Ooh, there's a storm.
Because I want to, if we're getting into the forecast here and just all of a sudden, today they started saying coming into next Tuesday, all of a sudden a storm does kind of go up over the top in Arizona, and kind of then it's saying it's going to hang around for a couple days, next Tuesday, Wednesday, if you see this thing. Now that's still 5, 6, 7 days away. This could change, but if I would have looked at it yesterday, I didn't see anything for 2 weeks, but you're like, oh, maybe we do have some hope for next week. Now, tomorrow I could come in here and it could totally change. But if I see it still says this tomorrow and it still says it come Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to start saying, hey, we got a little snow come next week. But, we just, but if we put it back into motion beyond this storm, we're right back at it with, pretty quiet conditions across the Southwest. Very, very La Nina. And, to just wrap it up, I mean, water is very important to us. Snow is very important across Arizona. It's how we all get our drinks. It's how we all take baths. It's all how, it's how we all live here. So not only is it fun to play with, and it's fun to have a snow day, water is life. And especially in a very dry and fickle environment like we are. Last year, 2020, was the driest year ever recorded in weather, all the way 121 years or so, all the way to 1899.
Wow.
And we're not starting 2021 much better. We still have, we still have water in the lakes and in the water tables, but the forest is thirsty, the trees and the animals are thirsty, and so we root for snow around here. And I always like to wrap it up also that if you're interested in weather and science, do good in school and do good in math and science.
Wow. Thank you, Lee. That was a great presentation, and I learned a lot, loved the graphics, and really the way that you explained it with the graphics, we could really understand that. And when you were talking about maybe the possibility next week of snow, Kristen and I were doing a snow dance, so maybe that'll help out a little bit.
Right.
But
I hope so. I mean,
thank you so much for your time. You are incredible to listen to. You make science sound very easy. So thank you very much.
my pleasure talking to you.
So the next thing I want to talk about is a really cool book. And you guys, I'm sure you can go to the library and check it out. It's called Snowflake Bentley. And this is a book about a guy named Bentley. And he really was interested in snowflakes because he lived where it snowed all the time. So here is Bentley. Bentley lived in 1875. So that's probably older than your grandparents, maybe your great-great-grandparents. And he looked at snowflakes in two different ways. So he took photographs. That is actually a camera. For those of us that only know of cameras from our cell phones, this is what a camera looked like a long time ago. During 1875, when Bentley lived, this was all really, really new stuff on the edge of technology. And he also looked at snowflakes underneath a microscope. Take a look at some of the snowflakes that he took pictures of. And it was very difficult with this kind of a camera, even though it was very new, it was still very difficult to take pictures with this kind of camera. You just didn't aim and click a button. It took a very long time, and it was a lot of hard work to take photographs at this time. However, Bentley did it, and here are some photographs of some different snowflakes. Now, all three snowflakes look really different, don't they? And all snowflakes are different. However, look at the six-sided shapes in each one of these different snowflakes. They all have the same repeating hexagon shape, but when the snowflake is done making itself, it is different. I think that it's really, really cool that Bentley wanted to study something, wanted to find out and come up with interesting facts about snowflakes. Before this, nobody understood anything about snowflakes. They didn't know how snow happened. They didn't know about crystals. They didn't know about the hexagon shape in snowflakes. They didn't know how the snowflake formed and how they were all different. But Bentley wanted to discover something new, and so he did some scientific investigation. So I would love for you to get out and find out some really cool science investigation of some things in your world. We have a couple more projects for you to do with snow, if you choose to do these things. We are going to make some crystals that you can eat. We'll pass this over and get it right up there. Look at all of those cool looking crystals. That's the kind of crystals that would form the snowflake that we've been talking about. This is going to be an edible crystal because we're going to make it out of sugar. Alrighty? You will need a pot. You will need lots of sugar, and you will need some water. And we're going to get the water and the sugar and boil it and make it into like a really thick syrup. And the crystals will form either on a stick or a rope, or not really a rope, it's a string. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so we have some water in our pan, and we're gonna do sugar. okay? This is not a precise recipe, and you can just play around with it. We have it in our pot. Now, with this next part, you are going to have some help from an adult, because we are going to be working with the stove, okay? So we're going to turn on our stove, and I have found, if you've ever made candy before at home, low temperature on your burner is much better than high, because if you burn it, then it's not going to turn out. So I always like to start with low heat. It will take some time, and notice how I'm stirring so we don't have that sugar sticking to the pan, and we're gonna mix it all together. So we have been stirring our sugar water mixture, and what's happening is the little sugar grains have already melted, and the grains are gone, and you can see it's a real liquidy solution in there. Okay, so we brought our sugar and water mixture to a boil for a minute, and what we're going to do now is we have a mason jar, okay, and we're going to pour our solution into the jar. And again, this is really hot, so this is another job that an adult would need to do. And hopefully I'm not going to spill it everywhere, but I'm going to pour it in here. Okay. Then, to make it look like our crystal sugar here, a couple things have to happen. We are going to put a stick in it like this. Okay, so the crystals will form around our stick, just like is here on our candy. Or if you would like to have a string of rock candy crystals, you can make a little knot on a little skewer, chopsticks, a pencil, and you just get some normal string, and we're gonna put it, it's starting to get kind of thick. We're gonna put that string, and it's sticky. So we're gonna put that string down into our sticky sugar water solution, and then you can just hang it from the top. We have our stick just leaning in our sugar water, or you have your stick on top with your little string, and it's hanging over the jar. You do not have to cover it, because this is what's happening here is the water that we put in here is going to evaporate, and that's going to leave the sugar to form crystals. Let's compare this to what's happening up in the clouds and what's happening with snow crystals, okay? So the stick here, or the string, that is going to be the particles of dust in the atmosphere that, remember, Lee talked to us about clouds and making snow. So the jar is kind of like our cloud, all right? And we have moisture, remember those droplets he was talking about. And the stick, or the string, is the little dust molecules that the crystals are going to be able to start forming around and making that crystal pattern. Now, it's not going to form like in an hour. It's going to take maybe a week or even 2 weeks for this magic to happen in here and the sugar to start making the crystals. All right. So there's some rock candy, and I hope that you have fun with this experiment.
Hi guys, it's Mari Soliday, and I am at not the Museum of Northern Arizona, and it's dark in case you can't see, but I'm at Fort Hill. That is the fairgrounds in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I have this wonderful person next to me. This is Jonathan, and I get to meet Jonathan tonight and talk about snowmaking. And we actually have a place in Flagstaff that you can play in the snow, even though Flagstaff isn't getting snow right now. So let's say hi to Jonathan. Hi.
Hi.
Tell us about this amazing place.
So it's called Flagstaff Snow Park. We started in the 2016-2017 winter season. And so you don't have to bring your own sled. We provide snow tubes. We're trying to cut down on any sort of waste. And the plastic sled, if you've seen them littering the forest, that's one of the big gripes we had with snow play in the public and in the forest. And like you, I've been in Flagstaff a long time, and so I always was looking for a place you could come out and play that was safe. And so that's what we've got here. This is man-made snow. It's real snow. It's made by us.
It's crunching
Snow. And man-made snow is very consistent on the speed, and so there's not a huge variation throughout the day. But when we do get natural snow, when it's fresh, you know, you look at the snowflakes, they're kind of jagged and sharp, and they don't slide that great. So the tubes will be a little bit slower, and as it warms up throughout the day, they slow down. And then at night, they'll speed back up. And so the man-made snow is much easier for us to manage as far as conditions and how fast the tubes go.
So, Jonathan, you've said that this is man-made snow, and it looks like snow, it feels like snow, but are the crystals or the structure, is it different?
It is different. It doesn't get those lovely hexagonal snowflakes like you get when snow falls for, thousands and thousands of feet. We end up with kind of little tiny balls of snow is a good way to think about it. And actually the outside of the ball is what freezes, and inside it can still be liquid. And so after we make snow, we let it sit for a day or two so that it can freeze all the way through before we move it around. And if you didn't let it sit, a lot of it would turn just back into water. So it's a different shape. Wow. It's still a little ball of ice. And what's interesting is when natural snow ages and gets old, as the shape of the flakes change, it starts to look more and more like man-made snow. So man-made snow, one way to think about it is it's like aged natural snow.
The other thing that I wanted you to talk about, Jonathan, is there's a science to snowmaking when we don't get it naturally.
Right.
Right?
Right. There's a few things you need. Number one is you need the right temperature. It's got to be cold. And actually, it's interesting. The kids might want to know or look into this. It doesn't actually have to be below freezing.
Okay.
There's something called a wet bulb temperature, and that's the temperature that a thermometer would get to if you wrapped it in a wet towel. And because of evaporation, it can actually get cold enough to freeze when it's above freezing. So we go off the wet bulb temperature, and so you could make snow up to 32, 33 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not going to be good snow though. So we don't usually start making snow till it's about 25 degrees or cooler. Now the other thing you need is when moisture falls out of the sky and turns into snow, those snowflakes form around a little particle of something, usually dust. And so when we're making snow, we have to recreate that, and we make a little particle of ice. We have something on the snow gun called a nucleator that makes little particles of ice for the snow to form around. And if you don't have that, you won't get snow.
Wow. I just heard that it's 19 degrees and we're out here freezing, but there's a reason why we're out here. Jonathan, tell us why we're out here at night.
The colder it is, the more snow we can make and the better quality snow we can make. So we are aware of water being a resource, and we don't want to ever waste it. So when we can make snow, when it's as cold as possible, we can make sure to make the best quality snow that's going to last the longest. Man-made snow lasts a lot longer than natural snow, but even so, we want to make sure that we're using that resource wisely. And so tonight it's supposed to be 7 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
Which means we can make a lot of snow. We have different valves on the snow guns that we can open up based on different temperatures. And so when it's 7 degrees, we'll be able to have all our valves open and make a big pile of snow.
Wow, that's really cool. So we are going to go and we're going to see how man-made snow is made.
All right, so this is a snowmaker. It's a little bit different than some because we don't have a water system where everything's really high pressure. We just have the normal pressure from your the city's water line coming in here at about 50 psi, and then we have a booster pump. Now the reason we have a booster pump is just like you make better snow with low temperatures, you'll make better snow with high water pressure. So this machine runs about 350 to 400 psi of water, which is pounds per square inch. It's a lot of water. And so the other thing we have down here, you might be able to see this right here, is an air compressor. And the reason you have the air compressor is you want the water when it comes out to expand. And so the pressurized air mixed with the pressurized water, when the water comes out of these nozzles, it expands and it gets a lot of surface area and can freeze. And so the other thing you have is this big fan in here that blows a lot of cold air through the water, and the combination of cold air being blown by the fan, compressed air from the air compressor expanding the water, and the high pressure water is the right conditions for snow if you have something for that snow to form around. And that's what this middle thing is right here. You can't see it, but there's a little nozzle, and that's our nucleator. And so that's what makes little tiny grains of ice. We test it with a leather glove or a piece of metal, and it looks just like slushy grapple. Grapple is just kind of like frozen slush, just like a Slurpee.
Okay,
like
I understand Slurpee.
Yeah. And so the nucleator sprays out little pieces of wet ice, and the snow forms around those.
Wow, that is cool science.
The conditions are right. So, all right. First, I'm going to turn on the compressor. Then I'm going to fire up this fan.
It totally feels like it's snowing. Little snowflakes are touching my face. It's so cool. When I first thought I was going to do this, I thought it was going to be like little fluffy little snowflakes. But it's like a full-on snowstorm, you know, hitting you right in the face. And it's covering my coat, my gloves with all the little snowflakes. But it's like an actual snowstorm. That was cool. I could feel the snow, and look at my gloves. Do you see the snow on my gloves? Okay, so I had no idea what it would be like to be out here when there was man-made snow being blown. If you can see on my coat and my scarf, my gloves, there's little snowflakes. So it's just like blowing real snowflakes. When I stand in the middle of it, I feel like I'm in a snowstorm. and I can feel the little snowflakes hitting me in the face, and it's a pretty incredible feeling. Okay, so Jonathan, I was thinking about you guys being out here and all the hard work that you're doing to make the snow. When do you know, okay, we've blown enough snow on this run, and what do you do once you've blown the snow on a run?
Right. So when we blow snow, it makes a big pile of snow. It's not like it's evenly distributed. So we make as much snow as we can in any given night, and then we'll push the snow around with a snowcat, and we don't make more snow until we need to. So basically, we can use up to 1 million gallons of water is what our permit's for, and that would allow us to make about 2 foot of really dense, compact snow over all of our runs. And so we've never needed to use that much water. Last year we used about 600,000 gallons of water, but we make snow when we need it, and we stop making it in mid-February.
That is wonderful to know. Oh, wow.
Okay, so the last thing that we have to do today is to make some of our own snowflakes. Since it's not snowing out right now here in Flagstaff, that doesn't matter. You can make your own snowflakes at home and tape them up to your windows. And if, can you see all of our designs here of our snowflakes? You can make heart-shaped design snowflakes. You can make them look more like a flower, and all different kinds of designs. And you also can do them on all different kinds of paper. We're just using regular computer paper or printer paper, but you don't have to do that. If you have junk mail at home, you can turn that into snowflakes. If you have colored paper at home and you would like blue snowflakes, go for it. You can use any kind of paper, all right? So let's get started making our own snowflakes. Most of the time, whatever paper you use is going to be kind of like a rectangle shape, and we want a square shape, okay? So this is how we change the paper. So you start off with your paper like this. You are going to fold it and make a triangle. You see that? Okay, and this part of the paper we don't need, okay? So if you want to, you can even put like little cut marks, okay? So you know exactly for sure where you need to cut, because that's important for our snowflake to turn out. We don't want to cut it in the wrong place, okay? So I made my cutting lines. I know exactly where I want to cut, and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go right along here and take this piece off. We won't need it. So now we have a triangle and a square. That's what we want to make our snowflake. So you have your triangle, and we want to fold our triangle in half. Okay? So there we have a smaller triangle. Now, the next step is a little tricky, but it's important, because if we don't fold our triangle in thirds, and I'll show you what that means, we will not have the 6 sides. So our snowflakes here, they all have 6 points, which snowflakes do have in nature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in order to get a naturally correct snowflake, we're gonna have to fold our triangle in thirds, okay? And it doesn't have to be perfect, because Mother Nature isn't perfect, but we want to try to do the best that you can. And like I said, it is a little tricky. You want to fold this part of the paper and fold it here. If you're good at origami, you'll get this down and you'll be making beautiful snowflakes. I am not good at origami. So I learned how to make snowflakes this morning. So you have this. So there's one, and remember we said we want thirds. So we have to overlap it and fold it again. See? So we folded this side over like that, and now you'll have a shape like this. It's overlapping, and I'll show you what I mean by thirds. You have 3 parts. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So now here is the creative, interesting part. We're going to start to make all of the little shapes that you want in your snowflake, so when you open it up, it'll have all these different shapes. You can be as creative with this as you want, okay? The first thing you want to do is you want to get these little tails, you want to cut them off because it will make our snowflake a real nice shape. So I know it feels wrong to cut these off, but you cut them off. You can cut them off straight, or you can kind of round it. See how I made it? I rounded it up at the top, okay? We're gonna open it up before we have any of our shapes inside the snowflake, just so you can get, see how it's kind of a round kind of shape there? It's not square anymore. Okay, now we got to get it folded back together. Okay, now we can start making some shapes for the inside of your snowflake. And I'm just gonna kind of, the more you cut, the more detailed your snowflake will be. But it's also more difficult because you don't want to cut a shape that is ripped, you know? Be as creative as you want to be, and if you make a mistake, then you make another snowflake, right? So I'm gonna do kind of some, see how that's kind of like a half circle there. Maybe I might do a kind of pointy, ooh, there we go. See, I have kind of like a point there. And then, so now we're on the other side of our snowflake, and I'm going to make a half circle over here. See? And I'm gonna make another one of the like little triangle things here. Let it come out. And then let's see what happens if we just kind of make some cuts. I'd see how I didn't cut it all the way out. Let's see what happens with that. Now, this is a delicate little thing, just like a snowflake out in nature that falls on your mitten. So you have to open up your snowflake really careful so you don't wreck it. Ooh, I like how this one turned out. And look, it has a little bit of a different edge there from when we just took some slices. So look at that. This is the most beautiful snowflake I've ever made. So just a couple more things that I want to point out here. This is a really good math lesson, okay? Because we folded our paper symmetrically, you're going to have these really great repeating, see, designs in 6. The other thing is practice makes us better, and you will have better and better snowflakes. Guys, I've had so much fun. We've gone on all kinds of adventures for this program, all about snow. Next time we come together, we're going to do our animals in the winter. I'll see you next time.
This is so much fun!